Hey, all you Greta's and Sheetascats out there. Welcome to Chapter 5, Section 4. We're going to look at different reproductive patterns that happen in populations. So the first one is called an R-selected species. And an R-selected species have a capacity for a high rate of population increase. They have very, very short lifespans. They usually have many small offspring. And they don't provide too much parental care or protection. So this offspring loss is overcome by massive offspring production. So at least a few will survive. So think bugs or fish or frogs or things that don't live very long and make a lot of babies. Think about Nemo and all of his potential brothers and sisters. They laid a lot of eggs, so at least one would make it. So that is an R-selected species. And this, what happens is we have opportunists, which reproduce rapidly under favorable environmental conditions. Hey, life is good. We're going to make a whole lot of babies while we can. This often occurs after a fire, or you clear an area that opens up a new habitat or niches for invasion of a new species. And these opportunists could crash after the growth or when something else comes in. And they go through these irregular and unstable boom and bust cycles. Then you have your K-selected species. So the main ones we want you guys to focus on are the R-selected and K-selected. K-selected species do much better in competitive conditions where your population size is getting near carrying capacity. So they tend to reproduce later in life. They have smaller number of offspring with much longer lifespans. They typically develop inside the mothers and are born fairly large. And then after birth, they mature slowly and are protected by one or both parents. So humans are definitely K-selected species. We reproduce much later in life, in the grand scheme of things. And we usually have one or two at a time. And we take care of them inside of us. So it's much easier to take care of your baby as it's developing if you literally keep it inside of your body instead of in a little egg that can get squished somewhere. So larger animals, think an elephant, larger things tend to do this, where you have your K-selected species. Now, a lot of species might kind of be in that middle gray area. On a test question, we will never ask you something that is in a gray area. It's either something that is very obviously R-selected or very obviously K-selected. So just think of these requirements and which one does it apply to. Is it making a lot of babies early in life and not caring about them? Or is it reproducing later in life, having only a couple and actually caring about their babies? So different species have different reproductive rates. They also have different life expectancies, which I'll show you in another slide or two. We have three kinds of survivorship curves. We can have late loss, where most things live for a while, and then at the end, a lot of them die off. You can have early loss, where most of your critters die in the beginning, and then a few make it. And then you can have constant loss, where it's just kind of a steady rate of things dying over the course of the span. So here's the late loss, here's your constant loss, and here's your early loss. So as you go up in age, how much of the population is left. So they were going to give you more. This would be your R selected species. These are the things that are making a lot of babies. So if you look at this, most of those babies die very early on, and you only have a few that are going to make it longer. So this here is your R-selected species. So your bugs, your amphibians, your fish, these guys. There's a couple things like rats, for some reason, die at a constant rate of loss. We won't really ask you much about that. And then your late loss are going to be your K-strategists. So if you think of humans, most humans make it to this later old age. And then once you hit whatever that magic age is, most of us die off. Well, all of us die eventually, but it's most of the death of humans happens at that later stage of life. You might lose a few earlier on, but most humans are happening over here. And we are done with notes. Once again, you have survived. So before I go, I want to take a chance to let each and every one of you know that you are good enough, you are smart enough, and people do like you. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good God, do your homework.